In a world bound by data and finance, the physical links between nations like bridges remain vital. The Gordie Howe International Bridge, a $4.8 billion project uniting the U.S. and Canada, now faces a major threat: a trade dispute sparked by new U.S. tariffs on steel and aluminum. This isn't just about infrastructure, it's a test of a decades-old partnership, as the very materials needed to build the bridge become bargaining chips in a high-stakes economic standoff. The question: will this bridge unite two nations, or become a symbol of growing distance? The Ambassador Bridge, which first opened its gates in 1929, has stood for nearly a century as the backbone of U.S.-Canada trade. Stretching across the Detroit River, it has connected the economies and communities of Detroit, Michigan and Windsor, Ontario, serving as a vital artery for commerce, culture and daily life on both sides of the border. For generations it has been more than just a bridge, it's been a symbol of partnership and progress between two nations. Yet, as the decades have passed, the bridge's age and chronic congestion have exposed a critical vulnerability. The infrastructure, once state-of-the-art, now shows clear signs of wear and tear, raising concerns about safety and reliability. Traffic jams and bottlenecks have become routine, frustrating drivers and slowing the flow of goods. Every single day, thousands of commercial trucks squeeze through its narrow lanes, transporting over $320 billion in goods each year. This includes a staggering volume of auto parts, which often cross the border multiple times during the manufacturing process. The bridge is a lifeline for North America's auto industry, and any disruption can ripple through supply chains, affecting jobs and businesses far beyond the border. The bridge's private ownership and outdated structure have led to costly delays, heated political debates, and even legal battles. Stakeholders on both sides have voiced frustration, and the need for a modern, publicly owned alternative has become increasingly urgent to ensure the smooth flow of trade and travel. Enter the Gordie Howe International Bridge, a visionary project designed to meet the demands of the 21st century. This 6-lane, state-of-the-art crossing will feature direct highway connections, advanced customs facilities, and the capacity to handle far more traffic, promising to transform the border experience for travelers and businesses alike. In a bold move, Canada is financing the entire $4.8 billion project, including the construction of the U.S. Customs Plaza. This unprecedented investment underscores just how vital this trade link is, not only for Canada, but for the entire North American economy. After years of complex negotiations, political wrangling, and unexpected setbacks, construction finally began. The Gordie Howe Bridge now stands as a powerful symbol of renewed optimism, determination, and cross-border cooperation, a testament to what can be achieved when two nations work together for a common goal. However, just as hope was building, new economic headwinds have emerged, casting uncertainty over the future and testing the resilience of this ambitious vision. President Trump's announcement of 25% tariffs on imported steel and 10% on aluminum stunned allies and markets. Justified under national security, the move drew sharp criticism from Canada, America's largest supplier of both metals. Prime Minister Trudeau called the idea of Canadian steel as a security threat inconceivable, vowing dollar-for-dollar retaliation if Canada isn't exempted. With $15 billion in Canadian metals at stake, the tariffs threaten to raise costs for everything from cars to bridges. Canada's exemption remains unresolved, tied to tense NAFTA negotiations, turning the tariffs into a powerful bargaining chip. The future of the Gordie Howe Bridge now hangs in the balance. Tariffs on steel and aluminum would ripple through the North American economy, hitting industries from autos to construction. Automakers face higher costs, which could mean pricier cars, reduced demand, and job losses. Construction projects, public and private, could be delayed or canceled as budgets soar. Retaliatory Canadian tariffs target politically sensitive U.S. goods, threatening farmers and manufacturers. A trade war could disrupt supply chains, raise consumer prices, and chill economic growth on both sides of the border. Real people, factory workers, farmers, truck drivers, stand to lose the most. The integrated U.S.-Canada economy means pain in one country is felt in the other. What was meant to protect jobs could end up threatening them. The Gordie Howe Bridge is especially vulnerable. Its construction depends on tens of thousands of tons of steel. A 25% tariff could add hundreds of millions to the project's cost, forcing tough choices: absorb the loss, seek more government funding, or cut corners on quality. The timing is critical, as steel procurement is about to begin and bids are based on pre-tariff prices. Uncertainty could delay construction for years, or even halt the project entirely. If costs spiral, Canada may shelve the bridge, leaving North America's busiest trade corridor reliant on a single aging crossing. The tariffs risk turning a symbol of future prosperity into a monument to missed opportunity. The fate of the bridge is now a test of political will and economic sense. Will leaders act before the window closes? Industry leaders on both sides of the border are raising their voices, warning that tariffs are not just a line item on a balance sheet. They're attacks on every car, every truck, and every family that depends on the auto industry for their livelihood. These leaders emphasize that tariffs ripple through the entire supply chain, increasing costs for manufacturers, dealers, and ultimately, consumers. The result is a blow to competitiveness, making North American vehicles more expensive and less attractive in the global market. Factories that once buzzed with activity now face uncertainty, and dealerships worry about shrinking inventories and rising prices. Flavio Volpi, head of Canada's Auto Parts Association, doesn't mince words. He calls the policy shooting ourselves in the foot, pointing out that the deeply integrated nature of the industry means both countries stand to lose. Volpi stresses that every car assembled in North America crosses the border multiple times before it's finished, and tariffs threaten to unravel decades of cooperation. U.S. auto executives, wary of political backlash and economic fallout, admit the uncertainty is a nightmare for planning and investment. They say it's nearly impossible to make long-term decisions when the rules could change overnight, putting billions of dollars and thousands of jobs at risk. Ken Newman of the United Steelworkers highlights the absurdity of the situation, saying, "Canadian steel goes into American tanks, into the very vehicles that defend our shared continent. And American steel comes into our factories, supporting Canadian jobs and communities. We're not just trading goods, we're building each other's futures. We are partners, not threats," Newman insists, echoing the sentiment of workers and business leaders alike, who see the cross-border relationship as a source of strength, not suspicion. On the factory floor, workers fear for their jobs as tariffs pit neighbor against neighbor. The anxiety is palpable. Families worry about layoffs, and communities brace for the economic shockwaves that could follow. On the Gordie Howe construction site, frustration runs high. Workers take pride in building a bridge that will connect two nations, but that pride is overshadowed by anxiety that politics could derail years of progress and investment. "We just want to build this bridge," says one project manager, his voice tinged with both hope and concern. "We know how important this is for trade, for jobs, for families on both sides. It's good for both countries," he adds, emphasizing the shared benefits and the spirit of cooperation that has defined the project from the start. The message from the front lines is clear: the stakes are real, and the consequences of failure go far beyond boardrooms and balance sheets. For workers, it's about paychecks, security, and dignity. The costs of failure are deeply personal. Families struggling to pay bills, workers facing unemployment, and entire communities at risk of decline if industries falter. The question now is whether Washington will listen before it's too late. As the debate rages on, the voices of industry leaders and workers grow louder, urging policymakers to remember what's truly at stake: the livelihoods of millions and the future of cross-border cooperation. Economists warn that broad tariffs are a blunt tool with unintended consequences. While they may seem like a quick fix to protect domestic industries, the reality is far more complex. Tariffs often ripple through the economy, raising costs for businesses and consumers alike, and can spark retaliation from trading partners. This creates uncertainty in global markets, and can stifle investment and growth, making the solution worse than the problem it aims to solve. Dr. Laura Dawson of the Wilson Center calls the Gordie Howe Bridge a case study in policy backfire. She points out, Canada is paying for a bridge that benefits the U.S., and now the U.S. is making it more expensive. The irony is hard to miss. A project meant to strengthen cross-border ties is now threatened by the very policies designed to protect American interests. Instead of fostering cooperation, these tariffs risk undermining years of collaboration and shared investment. History offers a warning. When the U.S. imposed steel tariffs in 2002, the results were disastrous for many. More jobs were lost in steel-consuming industries than were gained in steel production, as higher costs forced companies to cut back or close. The tariffs were so damaging that they were withdrawn within just 18 months. This episode serves as a stark reminder that protectionist measures can backfire, harming the very workers they intend to help. Experts argue for targeted enforcement, not sweeping tariffs that hurt allies and undermine the global trading system. They advocate for smarter, more precise policies that address unfair practices without alienating partners or disrupting supply chains. By working together, countries can resolve disputes and strengthen the rules-based order that has fueled decades of prosperity. The risk of a prolonged trade war is higher than ever, with the Gordie-Howe Bridge caught in the crossfire. As tensions escalate, projects like this become pawns in a larger geopolitical struggle, threatening jobs, investment, and the flow of goods across borders. The stakes are not just economic but also diplomatic, as trust between nations erodes. The consensus among economists and business leaders is clear: these tariffs threaten not just a bridge but America's economic leadership and credibility on the world stage. If the U.S. is seen as an unreliable partner, it risks losing influence and the benefits of global cooperation. The long-term costs could far outweigh any short-term gains. The lesson is clear: cooperation, not confrontation, builds prosperity. History shows that open markets and strong alliances drive innovation, create jobs, and raise living standards. When countries work together, everyone benefits from shared growth and stability. The question now is whether policymakers will heed these warnings. Will they choose a path of collaboration and foresight, or repeat the mistakes of the past? The answer will shape not just the fate of a bridge, but the future of international trade and economic leadership. The tariff dispute has strained U.S.-Canada relations, eroding decades of trust and cooperation. In Ottawa, the national security justification is seen as a political insult, forcing even pro-U.S. politicians to take a harder line. In the U.S., the tariffs divide the president's base from free trade Republicans, as farmers and manufacturers fear losing access to Canadian markets. In Canada, the response is unified. Politicians and premiers rally behind Trudeau, preparing robust retaliation. The Gordie-Howe Bridge is now a political symbol for Canada. Building it under U.S. tariffs looks like subsidizing an adversary. For the U.S., losing it would be a self-inflicted wound. The project's fate is tied to the broader trajectory of the U.S.-Canada relationship. The stakes are higher than steel and concrete. They're about the future of a vital alliance. Will politics trump partnership? The Gordie-Howe Bridge stands at a crossroads. Cooperation and shared prosperity on one side, economic nationalism and division on the other. The bridge was meant to be a legacy of partnership, but tariffs threaten to turn it into a casualty of trade war. Its fate will shape the U.S.-Canada relationship for decades. Will the world's longest undefended border remain a symbol of trust, or become a line of conflict? The choice ahead requires dialogue, compromise, and vision. The legacy of this moment will be written in steel and concrete. Will it be the soaring arches of a completed bridge or the rusting foundations of a project sacrificed to politics? The world is watching.